Margaret Ellis, 68, retired schoolteacher from Sarasota, Florida. On paper, she was fine. Blood pressure normal, cholesterol normal. No diagnosis, nothing flagged at her last checkup. But lately, opening a jar of pickles left her hands aching. Carrying groceries up from the car took 2 trips instead of 1. Her doctor said it was just getting older. What nobody told her was that her body had already been sending a warning. One doctors have quietly started calling the possible 6th vital sign, and it wasn't in her blood work, it was in her hands. Here's the number that should stop you for a second. A study published in the Lancet followed nearly 140,000 people across 17 countries. Researchers found that for every 11 pounds someone lost in grip strength, their risk of dying from any cause went up 16%. Their risk of dying specifically from heart disease went up 17%. Read that again. Not from a disease, not from a diagnosis, from how hard they could squeeze. And almost nobody has ever had it checked. If you want health information explained the way it should be, clearly, honestly, and without anything left out, subscribe and tap like. That is how King Vital Years reaches more people who need this. Today, I am going to show you exactly why grip strength predicts so much about your health. Walk you through a 10-second test you can do right now with nothing but your own hands, and give you real, research-backed benchmarks so you know where you stand, and what to do if you're not where you should be. Stay with me. Let's start with why grip strength matters so much, because it sounds almost too simple to be true. Think of your grip like the readout on an old pressure gauge. The gauge itself isn't the important part, it's what it's connected to. A pressure gauge doesn't create the pressure in the pipe, it just shows you what's happening deeper in the system. Your grip strength works the same way. Your hand isn't the story, your hand is the readout. Grip strength reflects your overall muscle mass, your nervous system's ability to fire signals efficiently, and how well your muscles are being fed by your cardiovascular system. When any of those systems start declining, often years before a diagnosis shows up anywhere else, your grip is one of the first places it becomes measurable. That's why researchers started paying attention to it. It's not that weak hands cause heart disease. It's that weak hands are often an early signal that something bigger is already underway. The study I mentioned, led by researcher Daryl Leong and published in the Lancet in 2015, is called the PURE study, Prospective Urban-Rural Epidemiology. It tracked people across wealthy countries and developing countries, cities and rural areas for years. And across every single one of those different populations, the same pattern held. Grip strength predicted death better than blood pressure did. Let that sit for a second. Better than blood pressure. And blood pressure gets checked at nearly every doctor's visit you'll ever have. Grip strength, in most cases, gets checked never. You can try this right now while you're watching. Make a fist with your dominant hand. Squeeze as hard as you comfortably can and hold it for 5 seconds. Notice what that felt like. Not the number, just the effort. In a few minutes, I'm going to give you a real way to measure this with something you already have in your kitchen and benchmarks so you know exactly where that number should land for your age and sex. Now let's talk about why this decline happens and why it often sneaks up on people who feel otherwise fine. Muscle isn't like a bank account that just sits there once you've built it. It's more like a garden. If you stop tending it, it doesn't stay the same size. It shrinks. Starting in your 30s, most people lose a small percentage of muscle mass every decade, and that loss speeds up significantly after 60. Doctors call this sarcopenia. You don't need to remember that word. What you need to know is this: it happens quietly, it happens gradually, and by the time it shows up as, "I can't open jars anymore," it's often been progressing for years. Here's what makes grip strength such a useful early signal. Your hands contain some of the densest concentrations of muscle-to-nerve connections in your entire body. When your nervous system starts slowing down, which affects balance, reaction time, and coordination. Your grip often reflects that decline before you notice it anywhere else. So, how do you actually test this at home? You don't need expensive equipment. The rolled towel test. Roll a bath towel tightly, like a log. Squeeze it as hard as you can with one hand for 5 seconds. If your hand visibly shakes, if you can't fully close your fingers around it, or if you have to brace your wrist against something to get any real force, that's worth paying attention to. The jar test. Take an unopened jar with a metal lid. Try to break the seal using only your hand strength. No tapping the lid, no running it under hot water first. If you consistently need help opening jars you used to open easily, that's a data point. The dead hang test, if you're able to safely do it. And I'll say clearly, only attempt this if you have no shoulder, wrist, or grip-related injury, and ideally with something sturdy to hold onto for balance. Hang from a sturdy bar or door frame pull-up bar with both hands, feet still touching the ground for support if needed, and see how many seconds you can maintain your grip before your hands start to slip. Even 10 to 15 seconds is a meaningful benchmark for adults over 60. Now, here's what the research says about actual benchmarks. And I want to be precise here because vague numbers don't help anyone. Grip strength is typically measured with a device called a dynamometer in kilograms of force. Research pooling normative data across older adults has generally found the following patterns, and I'll round for clarity. For men in their 60s, average grip strength tends to fall around 35 to 39 kilograms per hand. For men in their 70s, that drops to roughly 30 to 34 kilograms. For women in their 60s, average grip strength tends to fall around 20 to 23 kilograms. For women in their 70s, roughly 18 to 21 kilograms. Research has generally flagged grip strength as a concern when it falls below approximately 26 kilograms for men and 16 kilograms for women, regardless of age. This threshold has been used in several major studies, including work tied to the Foundation for the National Institutes of Health Sarcopenia project, as a marker worth discussing with a doctor. If you don't have access to a dynamometer, that's fine. Most people don't. The at-home tests I just walked you through won't give you an exact kilogram number, but they'll tell you what you need to know, whether your grip is functionally strong or whether it's declined enough to be worth a real conversation with your doctor. Let me introduce you to someone whose story shows exactly how this plays out. Robert Hale, 71, retired postal worker from Knoxville, Tennessee. For 2 years, Robert noticed he was setting down his coffee mug more carefully than he used to. Not dropping it, just feeling like his grip wasn't as sure. He mentioned it once to his doctor, who chalked it up to arthritis and moved on. What nobody measured was his actual grip strength. When Robert finally had it formally tested at a physical therapy evaluation, his grip came in at 22 kilograms, well below the concerning threshold for his age and sex. It wasn't arthritis alone. It was a broader strength decline that had been building for years, quietly, without a single blood test ever catching it. If this is new information to you, hit like right now. It genuinely helps this reach more people your age who need to hear it. How old are you? Leave your age in the comments below. It genuinely shapes what I cover next and helps me make these videos more useful for exactly where you are. Now, before I get to what Robert did to turn this around, I want to go back to that second study, because it deserves more than a passing mention. That meta-analysis, led by researcher Yen-Jun Wu, combining 42 separate studies and over 3 million participants total, didn't just look at grip strength as a number. It looked at what happened to people over time based on where their grip strength fell. And the pattern was consistent across nearly every study included. People in the lowest grip strength category had a 67% higher risk of dying from any cause compared to people in the highest category. Think about that in comparison to things we're taught to worry about constantly. A 67% higher risk is a bigger jump than what's associated with many well-known risk factors people get warned about at every checkup. And yet, grip strength gets tested almost nowhere. Why? partly because it's not a billable diagnostic code the way a cholesterol panel is, partly because for decades, medicine treated strength as a fitness metric, not a mortality metric. That's been changing. Geriatric medicine and cardiology researchers increasingly refer to grip strength as a possible sixth vital sign, alongside temperature, blood pressure, pulse, respiration rate, and pain level. But that shift hasn't fully reached the exam room yet, which means, right now, you likely know more about this than most people walk out of a doctor's office knowing. So let's talk about what to actually do about it, because a low number isn't a life sentence. Grip strength, unlike some health markers, responds well to targeted effort, even later in life. Rebuild Strategy 1. Carry differently on purpose. Most people carry groceries and bags with a passive grip, letting the bag hang and barely engaging the hand. Instead, actively squeeze the handle throughout the walk from car to counter. It sounds too simple to matter, but consistent daily grip engagement, even through ordinary tasks, has been shown in exercise physiology research to meaningfully improve forearm and hand strength over 8 to 12 weeks. Rebuild Strategy 2. Resistance band work twice a week. A basic resistance band, the inexpensive kind you can find for a few dollars, allows for wrist curls, finger extensions against resistance, and forearm rotations. 20 minutes, twice a week, is enough to see measurable improvement in most studies on older adults over a 2 to 3 month period. This is low-impact, joint-friendly, and doesn't require a gym. Rebuild Strategy 3. Modified dead hangs. For those without wrist, shoulder, or grip injuries, and ideally starting with a doctor's clearance if there's any joint concern, hanging from a sturdy bar with feet still on the ground for partial support builds grip endurance directly. Start with just a few seconds. Build gradually. This is one of the most direct ways to train the exact muscles the studies are measuring. Robert Hale did 2 of these 3. He skipped the modified dead hangs. A minor shoulder issue made him cautious, and his physical therapist agreed it wasn't worth the risk for him. He started actively engaging his grip while carrying his mail sorting bins at home, a habit he built without even thinking of it as exercise, and added resistance band work twice a week after his physical therapist suggested it. 12 weeks later, his grip strength had climbed from 22 kilograms to 27 kilograms. Still not the highest range for his age, but enough to move him out of the concerning threshold entirely. That's a real, measurable shift, not he felt stronger. 22 kilograms to 27 kilograms, tracked and confirmed. I want to be clear about something important here. None of this replaces a conversation with your doctor. If your at-home test today felt concerning, if your hand shook holding the towel, if jars have become a genuine struggle, that's worth mentioning at your next appointment, specifically asking about grip strength testing or a referral to physical therapy for a formal strength evaluation. This video is giving you research findings, not a diagnosis. Let's bring this together. Grip strength isn't just about your hands. It's a readout of your muscle mass, your nervous system, and how well your body is functioning as a whole system. And research now shows it's one of the strongest predictors of mortality we have, in some studies outperforming blood pressure. The Lancet's PURE study, tracking nearly 140,000 people across 17 countries, found that every 11-pound drop in grip strength was linked to a 16% higher risk of death from any cause and a 17% higher risk of cardiovascular death. A separate meta-analysis of 42 studies, over 3 million people, found a 67% higher risk of early death for those with the weakest grip. And it's testable, right now, with things you already own. Here's what to do tonight. Step 1. Do the rolled towel test or the jar test tonight and pay honest attention to what you notice: shaking, incomplete closure, needing to brace against something. Step 2. If you have access to a kitchen scale or a simple grip dynamometer, look into getting an actual number, so you have a real baseline to track over time. Step 3. Bring this up at your next doctor's visit specifically. Ask if they can test your grip strength or refer you to a physical therapist for a proper strength evaluation. Don't wait for your next annual physical if you're concerned. Ask at your very next appointment. Step 4. Pick one of the 3 rebuild strategies: active carrying, resistance band work, or modified dead hangs, and start this week, not eventually. If you've noticed your grip isn't what it used to be, that's worth a real conversation with your healthcare provider, not something to quietly work around. Everything covered today is for educational purposes only. Your health picture is specific to you, and the most useful thing you can do with this information is bring it to a doctor who knows your full history, not replace that conversation with a YouTube video. If this gave you something your doctor never had time to explain, subscribe to King Vital Years. Hit like so this reaches more people who need it. And tell me in the comments, what was your result when you tried the test just now? I read every single one. I'll see you in the next video.